Hey, just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Hope you all have a very good day. Um, Hope the weather's as nice as it is here. This is actually the day before Thanksgiving, but as I'm filming this, thought I would give a little story about the first Thanksgiving. When the Pilgrims first came over, they had a rough time of it. They had great difficulties with raising enough food, having enough eat, shelter, and everything. They prayed to God for help. He aided them greatly. Sent them good weather. He also sent them um, a certain Indian whose name was Desquanto, or we call him Squanto, who was raised in that area that the Pilgrims were residing. But he had gone traveling around, and while he was gone, I don't know if he was gone 10, 12 years, he learned English very well, and he had been a chief. And he just loved to travel. He traveled around on English ships and everything, and he learned a lot and was very smart. But while he was away and before the Pilgrims got there, all of everyone in his tribe, the Patuxet tribe, had gotten some sort of a plague and died. Every man, woman, child, everybody. So when he came back, the woods were empty. There was no one there. So he went to a neighboring tribe of, I forget that name of the tribe, but Massasoit was the chief of not only that tribe, but several others. Squanto came back traveling through there after a few years, met the Pilgrims. He came walking up to the main hall, the main house, the public house they called it, in the middle of the square, knocked on the door, and the men opened, and there was this tall Indian brave standing there with nothing but a loincloth on, very tall and muscular, and staring at him. And he all of a sudden said, "Welcome!" And they were shocked. They spoke very good English, and they got themselves together. They kind of said, well, welcome, as best as they could. The next thing he said was, "Have you got any beer?" And they said, "Well, no, we have no beer. Would you like some brandy?" He said, "Yes." So they invited him in, and they gave him a meal. I forget, he had, I don't know, some biscuits and jam, and I don't know if it was some roast duck or something. Anyhow, they were fascinated, and he just sat there and really enjoyed his meal greatly. When he was done eating, he looked at him, told him their story, his story of, that his tribe was wiped out. That's why when the Pilgrims had arrived there, they found this land had been opened and cleared, but there were no buildings there of any kind, so they didn't have to clear the land. It had already been cleared. That's where his tribe had lived. And so he kind of took them under his wing and showed them some different things, how you get eels from, they tried fishing, but they didn't do well at that at all. So he showed them how to push eels up out they went down to the seashore and push them up out of the mud and muck and sand with your feet, your bare feet, and grab them, and they had plenty of meals of eel. They said they're good eating. And he showed them how the tribes, the American Indians, had success planting corn here in this area. Pilgrims had first gotten there, they had tried running the place as a commune, having everything in common. That was in their pact, their contract that they had all signed. That everything would be in common. No matter what work everybody did, it all goes into one pile and everybody had equal shares. Socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it, they had no luck with that at all. It was not working for them at all. Well, let me read a little bit. I got in one of Rush Limbaugh's books here it's quotes from William Bradford, the writings of William Bradford, who was there. He was their governor. Let me just read that. The experience that was had in this common course and condition tried sundry years, that by taking away property and bringing community into a commonwealth would make them happy and flourishing, as if they were wiser than God, Bradford wrote. For this community, so far as it was found to breed much confusion and discontent, and retard much employment that would have been to their benefit and comfort. For young men that were most able and fit for labor and service did repine that they should spend their time and strength to work for other men's wives and children without any recompense. That was thought injustice. The Pilgrims found that I'm not quoting William Bradford right this second, but Rush Limbaugh's writings. The Pilgrims found that people could not be expected to do their best work without incentive. So what did Bradford's community try next? They unharnessed the power of good old free enterprise by invoking the undergirding capitalistic principle of private property. Every family was assigned its own plot of land to work and permitted to market its own crops and products. And what was the result? And now we're reading again William Bradford, their governor of the Pilgrims at that settlement at that time. This is his writings. This had very good success, wrote Bradford, for it made all hands industrious, so as much more corn was planted than otherwise would have been. It was earth brought forth in heaps. In no times, and this is going back to Rush Limbaugh's synopsis. In no time, Pilgrims found they had more food than they could eat themselves, so they set up trading posts and exchanged goods with the Indians. The profits allowed them to pay off their debts to the merchants in London, and the success and prosperity of the Plymouth settlement attracted more Europeans and began what came to be known as the Great Puritan Migration. So they were very, very thankful that God answered their prayers in sending help and also in sending good weather. This book here called The Light and the Glory, I don't know about everything in there being correct, but this has some more writings about what became the time coming up to the first Thanksgiving. That summer of 1621 was beautiful. Much work went into the building of new buildings, and 10 men were sent up north in the sailing shallop to conduct trade with the Indians. Squanto once again acted as their guide and interpreter. It was a successful trip, and that fall's harvest provided more than enough corn to see them through their second winter. The Pilgrims were brimming over with gratitude, not only to Squanto and the Wampanoags, who had been so friendly, but to their God. In him they had trusted, and he had honored their obedience beyond their dreams. So Governor Bradford declared a day of public thanksgiving to be held in October. Massasoit, who was the other Indian chief, they were about 40-50 miles south of them. He was invited and unexpectedly arrived a day early with 90 Indians. Counting their numbers, the Pilgrims had to pray hard to keep from giving in to despair. To feed such a crowd would cut deeply into the food supply that was supposed to get them through the winter. But if they had learned one thing through their travails, it was to trust God implicitly. As it turned out, the Indians were not arriving empty-handed. Massasoit had commanded his braves to hunt for the occasion. They had arrived with no less than 5 dressed deer and more than a dozen fat wild turkeys. and they helped with the preparations, teaching the Pilgrim women how to make hoe cakes and a tasty pudding out of cornmeal and maple syrup. Finally, they showed them an Indian delicacy, how to roast corn kernels in an earthen pot until they popped, fluffy and white, popcorn. The Pilgrims, in turn, provided many vegetables from their household gardens: carrots, onions, turnips, parsnips, cucumbers, radishes, beets, and cabbages. Also, using some of their precious flour, they took summer fruits which the Indians had dried and introduced them to the likes of blueberry, apple, and cherry pie. It was all washed down with sweet wine made from the wild grapes, a joyous occasion for all. Between meals, the Pilgrims and Indians happily competed in shooting contests with gun and bow. The Indians were especially delighted that John Alden and some of the younger men of the plantation were eager to join them in foot races and wrestling. There were even military drills staged by Captain Stanton. Things went so well, and Massasoit showed no inclination to leave, that Thanksgiving Day was extended for 3 days. They had so much for which to thank God for providing all their needs, even when their faith had not been up to believing that He would do so, for the lives of the departed, and for taking them home to be with Him, for their friendship with the Indians, so extraordinary when settlers to the south of them had experienced the opposite, for all His remarkable providences in bringing them to this place and sustaining them. They thanked God. So that's the story of the first Thanksgiving. Not exactly what we learned in school, but it's the truth. Kind of just skimmed over the top and hit the highlights. There's lots more in-depth stuff that's very interesting. Like, for example, they thought their crop was going to be ruined because they was going through a drought, and the corn was withering and just turning almost white. And they earnestly prayed, or fasted and prayed for God, please send rain. And very soon, a day or so later, clouds started to roll in, and there was no wind, no thunder, no storm, but there was just a gentle rain that fell for, I don't know if it fell for 3, 4, 5 days, and just watered the earth, and things flourished, and there was normal rains after that. God saved their crop. They honored God in giving Him the praise and giving Him the credit for sending that. It's just a lot of little things like that happen. But that's how the first Thanksgiving was. 90 unexpected guests, at least. At least they came with a lunch basket. Anyhow, just thought you all might enjoy that. Hope you have a very wonderful and blessed Thanksgiving. Don't forget the reason for it is to give God the thanks, praise Him for all His many blessings. We are truly blessed. Get you guys.